Alright guys, welcome back to another video from the Peak Fiction channel. Today we're going to be breaking down the second chapter of Boruto TBV, and in this chapter we got battles, we got dialogue, we got information, we got hints about the next big enemy, a bunch of stuff. But first things first, we have to start with the first thing that happened in this chapter, and it was the dialogue between Boruto and Code. In this bit of dialogue right here, Boruto was as confident as ever. We always talk about exactly how strong Boruto is. Boruto clearly believes that he's a lot stronger than Code. One of the first things that we did hear from Boruto was essentially a threat. He basically told Code to withdraw your monsters and then Boruto will let him live. Directly after that, it seemed that Code was absolutely confused, perplexed, and everything above. He had to ask Boruto if he forgot how helpless he was in the battle versus himself 2 years ago, which pretty much gives us even more intel and more information about specifically what happened 2 years ago. Later on, piggybacking off of Boruto's confidence, he pretty much told Code directly after that, you'll lose more than a left eye this time. So essentially still referencing back to the actual battle that happened 2 years ago. And it seems that Boruto kind of confirms that he may actually be the person to actually give Code that scar in the battle 2 years ago. Boruto himself didn't necessarily refute that he was kind of helpless in the battle 2 years ago, but he did kind of respond and say, right now you'll lose a lot more than just your left eye. It just seems that Boruto is extremely confident in his growth over the past 2 years, and hopefully Sasuke is actually the reason as to why Boruto does kind of feel this growing confidence. Sasuke has the potential of going down as one of the best teachers in the whole entire series if Boruto's confidence is actually legitimate. But that wasn't the only interesting thing that did actually come from this dialogue. Boruto kind of hinted towards the fact that Code was going to actually lose control over the claw grime in the future. Specifically, he says, withdraw your monsters, all of them, do it now while you're still able to control them. Now, in my opinion, this right here definitely heavily hints to a potential threat even past Code and a possible threat to Code himself. And this right here was kind of interesting, Mello, because one of the things that I did kind of notice is the fact that the Ten Tails, they aren't necessarily fully loyal or subservient to many people, and especially a character like Code. If you guys do recall, the Ten Tails himself, even though it was Jigen's Ten Tails, the Ten Tails didn't even have any respect or loyalties towards Jigen. If you guys do recall, the first time that we did see Jigen and the Ten Tails interact, the Ten Tails literally tried to eat Jigen. But interestingly enough, after that specific sentence that Boruto did actually give, Code didn't necessarily respond. He really focused a lot more on the sentence that Boruto said afterwards, which was specifically, and I'll let you live. So from this dialogue right here, we don't really get Code's reaction to what Boruto believes is going to happen in the future. Directly after that, we did get a bit of dialogue between Sarada and Boruto, and they barely gave us anything. Like literally, it came in just one solid panel, but nevertheless, it was still cool to see Boruto and Sarada interact with each other, and he did pretty much give her some orders, or at least ask his former Team 7 captain to actually help out the civilians inside the village. The next scene was definitely an interesting scene. It was basically Team 10 versus the claw grime. This right here was an upside that was definitely anticipated by a lot of YouTubers that actually did come from the claw grime. Now we're going to get to see more of the side characters get involved because they are going to have some lower level characters to actually fight against. We do see Chocho get involved, we do see Inojin get involved, and we do see Shikadai get involved. But the scene really picks up when one of the claw grimes try to catch Chocho off guard. Inojin saves Chocho by pretty much abducting one of the claw grime, and then the claw grime destroys one of Inojin's beast scrolls, and then Himawari goes flying. Kawaki starts coming out of nowhere, one of the goats of the series by the way, and saves Himawari from a claw grime. Now that claw grime, after he gets kicked by Kawaki, doesn't go down. Out of nowhere, sprouts a full-blown Rasengan and then growls at Kawaki, almost similar to how the Ten Tails was growling at Jigen when we first seen Jigen pull up on the Ten Tails before the Naruto and Sasuke battle. Just want to add this in. Directly after that scene, Himawari tries to call Kawaki big bro. Kawaki was not with it at all, did not let Himawari cook. While he was addressing Himawari, the claw grime with the Rasengan caught Kawaki off guard and drove his head directly into the pavement. Then he whispers Otsutsuki. If you guys do recall, originally the Ten Tails, they're fed Otsutsuki members, and then that becomes the seedling to a full-on god tree, and then the chakra fruit sprouts from that. That's essentially what Ten Tails want to do. So because this one humanoid Ten Tails sees an Otsutsuki member, now he's kind of going crazy. And of course, directly after that, Shikadai was Johnny on the spot. He did the shadow paralysis jutsu. Kawaki uses his karma seal and pretty much blows the top half of the claw grime clean off, similar to what he did to Garo back when we first seen him fight against that Kata outsider. After that, sadly, most of Kawaki's part was over, and then we see the big dog Boruto finally come in.
Now we then cut back to Boruto and Code, where Boruto proceeds to show off his swordsmanship training that he's done with Sasuke by easily slicing down a bunch of the claw grime. Now granted, these are the weaker claw grime, these are not the ones with the Rasengan that Kawaki faced, so it's not like the most impressive thing in the world, given that, Team Inoshika Cho can handle these ones too. But that said, Boruto did easily take out a bunch of them in his base, and this leads Code to believe that Boruto wasn't completely bluffing earlier when he threatened to kill Code and promised that Code would lose more than just his left eye this time. Now Boruto goes on to say that if Code keeps persisting with his invasion, he's going to lose every single last one of his claw grind. Now Code just thinks Boruto's being cocky, and that this little army Boruto defeated wasn't really anything special. It's just a drop in the bucket, as he puts it, and they're also just tools. He doesn't really care if he lost like 10 out of his over 1,000 army of claw grind. However, Boruto says that Code doesn't understand the true horror of the Tenten, which surprises Code. But before we get any elaboration of what Boruto is talking about, we instead cut to Sarada doing some hand signs and a fireball jutsu on like one claw grind, where she then runs through her own fireball jutsu to use a Chidori on a bunch more claw grind without using hand signs this time. And this makes some of the Leaf Ninja in the background go, "Amazing! Are you really just a Genin?" And of course the answer is yes, she really is just a Genin, but not because that's really what she should be, it's just because she either never got promoted in the manga, or she got demoted over the time skip because she kept advocating for Boruto's innocence and Shikamaru just got sick of it. Either way, I find it funny. However, one of the claw grinds sneaks up on Sarada, which seems to be their go-to move, sneaking up on people, and the guy with the goofy haircut that was like, "Amazing!" jumps behind Sarada to save her life. And when he does so, he gets bitten by that claw grind, where that claw grind then starts to turn into a tree, which should remind you of the process of a Ten-Tails turning into a divine tree when it eats an Atsuki. Of course, in this case, it's a claw grind eating a human kind of and then turning into a tree. And it's at this point that we then cut back to Boruto and Code, where Code says that he knows plenty about Ten-Tails. They devour Atsuki. Well, in truth, they're just beasts that'll just instinctively bite anybody in their vicinity until they eventually run into an Atsuki. Now Boruto says that that might normally be the case, but these ones are different, thanks to Code enhancing them, which is definitely in reference to Code's claw marks because he infused the claw marks onto the Ten-Tails in order to split it apart and create these soldiers. This has had an effect on them. Now there's a few different possible effects that Boruto might be referring to here. One of them could easily be the Rasengan we saw on that one claw grind earlier when it was fighting Kawaki. It made it stronger, obviously, among other things. Other aspects could be intelligence. We did see that one claw grind and that one claw grind alone say the word Utsuki to Kawaki, as in, it knew that Kawaki was an Utsuki. Code describes the Ten-Tails as a beast that just bites anyone around it, until it just happens to find an Utsuki. However, that Rasengan claw grind knew that Kawaki was an Utsuki. It could tell somehow. Maybe it couldn't tell until it touched him, but either way, it was able to eventually tell. It also didn't try to bite him for whatever reason, it just chokeslammed him instead. But either way, there might be an intelligence effect too. It could be both power and intelligence. It could also just be modifying their bodies in an interesting way, such as creating new Utsuki or something like that. Either way, it seems to be bad because Boruto is throwing a big fit over it. He tells Code that it isn't too late yet. He needs to scrap all of them now while he still has control over them, or else they're going to end up in the worst possible future for everyone. Now, Code's just like, bruh, I don't care. When the Ten-Tails devours an Atsuki, it becomes a divine tree and ultimately drains the life out of that planet. So Code's goal is literally the worst possible future for everyone else besides him. However, Boruto keeps saying that he'll let Code live if he brings him to where the Ten-Tails is. He really wants Code to bring him to the Ten-Tails dimension, and he's willing to just let this crazy Atsuki-loving dude live if Code agrees. However, Code obviously doesn't agree to that. He thinks it's stupid and questions if Boruto's lost his mind. And Boruto really starts to trash talk here because he says, "I'll be honest with you, killing you is easy. So instead of dying in vain, why not do one act of good for the world?" However, this just riles up Code even more, so Boruto's not doing a very good job of convincing Code to listen to him. He should probably take some notes from Naruto, who actually tried to reach a common ground between his opponent and himself whenever he did his talk no jutsu. Boruto is not doing that here. Instead, he just says, "I guess there's no cure for idiocy." where he then starts to form his new jutsu. He starts forming it around his hand, and then it quickly starts spreading around his body. And Code notices that it looks like a Rasengan and says, a Rasengan? What a one-trick pony. And Boruto says, Rasengan Uzukiko, and we see it swirling around his body. Now as for what this jutsu is, there's quite a lot of possibilities here. It does look invisible at its core, so I do think there's an element of the vanishing Rasengan at play here, meaning that Boruto is infusing lightning release into it to make it invisible, as we're not seeing a Rasengan anywhere, it's clearly invisible. So in some aspects, it could be like Sasuke's Chidori stream, where he basically uses Chidori around his body to unleash electricity on its opponent. Boruto could be doing something similar with his Rasengan here. Now the effect will probably be different from Sasuke's Chidori stream, as the vanishing Rasengan never like zapped people and electrocuted them, it just disappeared and made it invisible. So the lightning element aspect of Boruto's Rasengan might just be the invisible element here. That being said, it could still be forming around his body, kind of like the rotation jutsu that Hyuga used, except Boruto doesn't need to rotate his body, instead he rotates the chakra around him like a Rasengan. Now the effect could basically be the same thing as rotation, just be an ultimate defense, except it's invisible. Or some people have also noticed that the little dust cloud swirliness of chakra around Boruto does look a lot like the Shinjutsu panel of Shibai, where we see some dust clouds and swirly chakra stuff around Shibai in a very similar manner. There could be a connection, or it could be a coincidence. At the end of the day, only time will tell on what exactly this jutsu is that Boruto is using. Either way, it looks cool. It's probably going to surprise Code with its effect, and I'm sure it'll be plenty strong, given how strong Boruto looks to be after the time skip here. Seems to be very strong. Sasuke's training with Boruto definitely paid off. However, I don't think Boruto is actually going to just kill Code here. Like, Code's probably not going to die 1v1 against Boruto right now. Ideally, Code would actually be stronger than Boruto and surprise him, and force Boruto to team up with other people like Kawaki, Mitsuki, or multiple people for that matter, in order to bring Code down, or Code just escapes without dying. At the end of the day, I don't think Boruto's gonna 1v1 Code, and hopefully Code just doesn't die in this arc in general here. I'd like to get more from him moving forward, and hopefully Code can have a major impact on Boruto or the Leaf Village by doing something really bad during this clash here. But I want to hear what you guys think. First of all, what on earth do you think Boruto's jutsu is? How do you think it works, and what do you think its effect will be? And second, what do you think the horrific thing about the Ten Tails is that Boruto mentions, and how do you think that relates to the Clawgram that had the Rinnegan? And third, on a very similar note, why do you think that Clawgram awakened a Rinnegan? Do you think it's because Code has a Rinnegan eye under his claw mark? Do you think it's because Code's DNA mixed with the Ten Tails just awakened the Rinnegan? Do you think it's just because the Ten Tails itself has a Rinnegan? Or do you think it's because Code has some Shibai DNA, resulted in them awakening a Rasengan? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, but that's a wrap on today's video, so thank you guys for watching until the end. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, like the video, follow us on Twitter, check out all of our individual channels, and hit the bell icon for notifications. This has been Peak Fiction, and we'll catch you guys next time. Bye!